Barbecue blues. The charcoal briquettes hissed a protest as lighter fluid soaked in. Sarah knelt, the rough concrete of the patio digging into her knees. Barbecue. Obligation, more than celebration, really. She checked off the mental list: burgers, buns, potato salad store-bought, because Aunt Carol's was legendary for food poisoning, lemonade, watermelon, bug spray, sunscreen. The inventory stretched on, a familiar litany of suburban summer rituals. She glanced at the faded floral cushions on the patio furniture. 5 years. 5 years since she'd replaced the bright, cheerful set Mark had insisted on with something less him. These were practical, washable, and utterly devoid of personality. Just like her life, some days. A gust of wind carried the scent of freshly cut grass from Mr. Henderson's yard next door. He was meticulously edging his lawn, as always. Another predictable element in her predictable world. She struck a match, the sulfur smell stinging her nostrils. As the charcoal began to catch, wisps of smoke curling into the clear blue sky, memories drifted in with the breeze. Past BBQs, Mark, always the life of the party, beer in hand, regaling everyone with stories, some true, most embellished. He'd always made a show of flipping the burgers, tongs clanging dramatically, announcing each one's doneness with theatrical flair. And she, Sarah, would be hovering nearby, refilling drinks, making sure everyone had enough napkins, silently praying he wouldn't say something inappropriate to her and Mildred. A pang of something she couldn't quite name shot through her. Not regret, exactly. More like a wistful ache for a time when things felt simpler, even if they hadn't been. She added more charcoal, a small pile at a time. No need to rush. Everyone would be here in an hour, descending like a swarm of locusts. Her parents, bless their hearts, with their well-meaning but pointed questions about her social life. Her sister Emily, with her perfect family and perfect career and perfect everything. And then there were the cousins, the aunts, the uncles, a sea of faces, a cacophony of voices, all swirling around her, leaving her feeling both utterly connected and completely alone. This year, though, there was a new element: Liam, Daniel's best friend. Daniel had insisted on inviting him, claiming Liam was basically family anyway. Sarah hadn't met him properly, just glimpses at school events. Daniel said Liam was cool, confident, and totally gets me, Mom. She hoped he wouldn't be trouble. She really just wanted one drama-free day. She adjusted the radio on the small table, tuning it to a classic rock station. Something inoffensive. Something that wouldn't offend Aunt Mildred. As the opening chords of Summer of '69 filled the air, she sighed. The charcoal was glowing, the sun was shining, and the potato salad was chilling in the fridge. All she had to do was survive. And maybe, just maybe, find a moment for herself amidst the chaos. A moment to breathe, to remember who she was beyond Daniel's mom and Mark's ex-wife. A moment to simply be Sarah. Arrivals and introductions. The familiar rumble of Billy's beat-up Jeep announced their arrival. Sarah watched from the patio, a tray of iced tea glasses precariously balanced in her hands. Billy spilled out of the driver's side, all elbows and awkward grins. Behind him, Alex unfolded from the passenger seat with a languid grace that made Sarah's breath catch in her throat. He seemed different. Taller, certainly, his shoulders broader beneath the familiar faded blue t-shirt. But it was more than just physical changes. There was a quiet confidence about him, a self-assuredness that hadn't been there last summer. "Sarah, you made the sweet tea! Awesome!" Billy barreled towards her, nearly knocking over a carefully arranged pot of geraniums. "Careful, Billy!" she scolded, then turned to Alex, a hesitant smile playing on her lips. "Hi, Alex. Welcome. Glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he smiled back. "Need a hand with those?" He gestured towards the tray. Before Sarah could protest, he'd already taken half the glasses, his movements surprisingly deft and careful. "Where do these go?" "Just on the table by the grill." "Thanks, Alex, you're a lifesaver. Billy would have probably worn half of them." Billy, already halfway to the cooler, feigned offense. Hey! I resent that. Sarah chuckled, leading Alex to the crowded picnic table. Her aunts were already gossiping in one corner, while her uncles argued good-naturedly about the best way to grill ribs. Her grandmother sat serenely in the middle of it all, a floral scarf draped around her shoulders, observing the chaos with a knowing smile. Grandma Miller, you remember Alex, right? Billy's best friend? Sarah said, carefully setting down the tray. Of course, dear. Alex, you've grown a foot since last year. And gotten handsome, too, her grandmother said, her eyes twinkling. Alex blushed slightly, a charming contrast to his usual confident demeanor. He shook her grandmother's hand, his grip firm but gentle. It's good to see you again, Mrs. Miller. This place smells amazing. I think I smell ribs. Sarah watched as Alex navigated the throng of relatives, offering polite greetings and genuine smiles. He complimented her Aunt Carol on her potato salad and actually listened to Uncle Frank's long-winded explanation of his secret barbecue sauce recipe. He even managed to coax a smile out of her notoriously grumpy Uncle George, who usually just grunted at anyone under the age of 50. He was so at ease, so adult. It made Sarah feel strangely flustered. Last year, he'd been just one of the boys, another teenager raiding the fridge and playing video games. Now he was different. She couldn't quite put her finger on it, but something had shifted. The way he held himself, the way he looked at her, it was all subtly, but undeniably, changed. Unexpected assistance. The grill stubbornly refused to cooperate. Sarah fiddled with the igniter, her cheeks flushed, not from the summer heat, but from sheer frustration. Blast it! She muttered, clicking the useless button again. Having some trouble? Alex's voice, laced with amusement, made her jump. He leaned against the patio table, arms crossed, a picture of effortless cool. Sarah managed a weak smile. Just a little. This thing is being temperamental. Without a word, Alex straightened and moved beside her. He examined the grill, his brow furrowed in concentration. Let me try. He unscrewed the propane tank, checked the connection, and then, with a practiced flick of his wrist, adjusted the regulator. A low hiss filled the air, followed by the satisfying whoosh of the burner igniting. Sarah blinked, surprised. Wow. Thanks, Alex. I've been wrestling with it for ages. He grinned, the sun catching the gold flecks in his eyes. No problem, Sarah. Sometimes these things just need a little persuasion. As the grill warmed up, Sarah realized she was missing the Worcestershire sauce. Oh, shoot. It's in the pantry. Could you? Already on it. Alex disappeared inside before she could finish the sentence, returning moments later with the bottle in hand. You're a lifesaver, Sarah said, genuinely grateful. His help was making the whole process infinitely easier and less stressful. She found herself enjoying his presence. So, Alex began, leaning against the counter separating the patio from the kitchen. What culinary masterpiece are we creating today? Just burgers and hot dogs, Sarah replied, grabbing a bowl. Nothing too fancy. Modest, I see. He winked. But I bet they'll be the best burgers and hot dogs this side of the Mississippi. Sarah laughed, a genuine, unguarded sound that surprised even her. You're quite the charmer, aren't you? Only for the right people. His gaze lingered on her a moment longer than necessary, a subtle shift in his expression that made her pulse flutter. He quickly turned his attention to the bowl of hamburger patties. Need any help seasoning these? He knew exactly what he was doing. Sarah felt a nervous energy thrumming beneath her skin. Actually, yes. Could you grab the garlic powder from the spice rack? He complied, his movements fluid and efficient. As he sprinkled the garlic powder over the patties, his hand brushed against hers. A jolt, unexpected and undeniable, shot up her arm. She quickly busied herself with arranging the hot dogs, pretending not to notice. The afternoon continued in a similar vein. Alex fetching, assisting, and offering a steady stream of light-hearted banter. He seemed to anticipate her needs before she even voiced them, making her feel oddly cared for. He was attentive and observant. His eyes were kind. It was different from how he treated the other adults. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard, Sarah realized the family was starting to arrive. Her sister, Susan, and her husband, Tom, pulled into the driveway, followed by her parents. The party was officially starting, and the quiet intimacy she had shared with Alex was coming to an end. A strange sense of disappointment washed over her. "Looks like the cavalry's here," Alex said, nodding towards the arriving cars. He caught her eye. A secret acknowledgement passed between them. "Yeah," Sarah replied, a little breathlessly. "Guess I should get these burgers on the grill." A quiet moment. The noise of the party vibrated in Sarah's chest, a low thrum of laughter and overlapping conversations. She'd been cornered by Aunt Carol, who was detailing her latest bunion surgery with graphic enthusiasm. Sarah plastered on a polite smile, but her gaze kept drifting toward the makeshift volleyball net strung up in the far corner of the yard. Maybe a quick game would be a good escape. Suddenly, a hand, warm and surprisingly firm, touched her elbow. "Sarah, I need your expert opinion on something. Come with me." Alex's voice cut through Aunt Carol's monologue. He didn't wait for an answer, just gently steered her away from the Bunyan Chronicles and toward the relative quiet of the side yard, near the fragrant lilac bushes. "Expert opinion?" Sarah raised an eyebrow, a smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "Last I checked, my expertise lies in spreadsheets, not barbecue strategy." Alex chuckled, a low, attractive sound that seemed to vibrate only for her ears. "Ah, but you forget the great burger debacle of 17. Your unique approach to grilling remains legendary." Sarah groaned. "Don't remind me. I still have nightmares about charcoal briquettes. It had been a disaster. Every burger had been either raw in the middle or cremated beyond recognition. She'd wanted the earth to swallow her whole. Legendary in a good way," Alex corrected, his eyes twinkling. It showed commitment. Passion. An unwavering dedication to crispy cuisine. He leaned closer, his shoulder brushing hers. The scent of wood smoke and his cologne, a subtle, spicy fragrance, filled her senses. Sarah found herself unexpectedly flustered. She hadn't anticipated this level of attention. "You're enjoying this way too much," she accused, trying to sound annoyed but failing miserably. "Maybe I am," Alex admitted, his gaze holding hers. The playful glint in his eyes deepened, replaced by something warmer, more intense. It made her skin prickle. "Someone had to salvage those poor burgers, you know. Took me hours to pick the burnt bits off." "Oh, so you're saying I ruined dinner for everyone?" She punched him lightly on the arm, a playful gesture that felt strangely intimate. "I'm saying," he said, his voice dropping a register, "that you looked really cute trying to control a grill the size of a small car while battling a rogue spatula." Sarah's breath caught in her throat. Cute? No one had called her cute in, well, a long time. Especially not someone like Alex. He was always so confident, so effortlessly charming. "I highly doubt that," she managed to say, her voice sounding a little breathless even to her own ears. He stepped closer, closing the small space between them. The murmur of the party seemed to fade away, replaced by the sudden, loud thump of her heart. "Trust me," he murmured, his gaze lingering on her lips. "I have a very good memory." Sarah swallowed hard, suddenly acutely aware of the way her sundress clung to her, the way the late afternoon sun warmed her skin. She should probably say something, deflect, change the subject. But the words seemed to have deserted her. The moment stretched, thick with unspoken possibilities. Then, a shout from the volleyball net shattered the spell. "Alex! You gonna play or what?" Alex sighed, a small, almost imperceptible sound. He stepped back, creating a more comfortable distance. "Duty calls," he said, a hint of regret in his voice. He gave her one last, lingering look. "But we're not finished here, Sarah." He turned and jogged back toward the volleyball game, leaving Sarah standing alone amidst the lilacs, her pulse still racing, her thoughts a tangled mess of surprise and anticipation. She touched her fingers to her lips, a faint smile playing on her face. What had just happened? Interruption and awareness. You're a lifesaver, Alex. Aunt Carol boomed, her voice cutting through the murmur of conversation like a rogue lawnmower. She descended upon them, a whirlwind of floral print and enthusiastic gratitude. Honestly, Sarah was about to collapse under the weight of these potato salads. You're such a help, dear. Alex straightened, releasing Sarah's arm. The fleeting warmth where his fingers had been lingered, a phantom touch that made her skin prickle. Just doing what I can, Mrs. Henderson, he said, his smile wide and genuine as he took the overflowing bowl from Sarah. Carol beamed. Well, we appreciate it. Now you run along and enjoy yourself. Sarah, dear, come help me with the dessert table. Your Uncle Jerry's already eyeing the lemon bars like a hawk. Sarah nodded, a little too quickly, and followed Aunt Carol, her cheeks burning. She risked a glance back at Alex. He was already chatting with her cousin Ben, his head thrown back in laughter. The easy camaraderie was a relief, and yet, a strange pang, a whisper of disappointment, echoed within her. The dessert table was a riot of colors and sugary aromas. Lemon bars, brownies, fruit tarts, and a towering chocolate cake threatened to topple under their own weight. Sarah busied herself arranging the plates and cutlery, trying to ignore the persistent flutter in her stomach. He's a good boy, that Alex, Aunt Carol commented, her voice low as she surveyed the spread. So polite and helpful. Reminds me a bit of your father when he was younger. Sarah managed a weak smile. He is nice. And handsome, wouldn't you say? Carol winked, nudging Sarah playfully. Sarah's face flamed. Aunt Carol, she protested, feigning exasperation. He's just helping out. And he's much younger than me. Oh, pooh. Carol waved a dismissive hand. Age is just a number. Besides, a little attention never hurt anyone. You deserve it, dear. You work so hard. Sarah didn't know what to say. Carol's words, though well-meaning, only amplified the guilt that was already gnawing at her. She knew she shouldn't be entertaining these thoughts, shouldn't be enjoying Alex's attention. He was practically a kid, and she was, well, she was Sarah, the responsible one, the dependable one, the one who always did the right thing. She caught Alex's eye across the lawn. He raised his glass of lemonade in a silent toast, a playful glint in his eyes. Sarah quickly looked away, focusing on the precise placement of a serving spoon. She needed to create some distance. Physical distance. Emotional distance. Any kind of distance she could muster. The spark she'd felt earlier, the unexpected thrill of his gaze, was dangerous, a flickering flame that threatened to ignite something she couldn't control. She felt a sudden need for fresh air, for escape. I think I'll go check on the grill, she said, turning to Aunt Carol. Make sure Dad hasn't burnt the burgers to a crisp. Carol chuckled. Good idea. And try to relax, dear. It's a barbecue, not a board meeting. Sarah forced a smile and walked away, feeling the weight of 1,000 unspoken words pressing down on her. The sun suddenly seemed too bright, the laughter too loud, the air too thick with the scent of summer and something else, something she couldn't quite name, but knew she had to resist. Broken plates, broken barriers. The smoky scent of grilling burgers hung heavy in the air, a comforting, familiar aroma. Sarah expertly flipped patties, the rhythmic sizzle a counterpoint to the boisterous laughter erupting from the makeshift volleyball court in the backyard. She usually found solace in the controlled chaos of a family barbecue, but today, a nervous flutter resided in her stomach. Those look amazing, Mrs. Miller, Alex said, his voice a low hum that seemed to vibrate through her. He stood just outside the grilling area, leaning against the weathered picnic table, his eyes crinkling at the corners as he smiled. Honestly, better than anything my mom could ever whip up. Sarah's cheeks flushed. Oh, stop, she mumbled, turning her attention back to the burgers. She knew he was teasing, but the warmth in his gaze made it hard to dismiss completely. Your mom's a fantastic cook. She makes a mean casserole, I'll give you that, Alex conceded, a playful glint in his eyes. But your grilling skills? Legendary. Sarah laughed, a genuine, surprised sound. She hadn't expected him to seek her out again, let alone offer such blatant flattery. She carefully lifted a stack of clean plates, intending to bring them to the buffet table. Careful there, Alex warned, but it was too late. The compliment, coupled with the unexpected nearness of him, had thrown her off balance. The plates slipped from her grasp, crashing onto the patio with a shattering cacophony. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd. Sarah's face burned with embarrassment. She knelt, her hands hovering over the shards of porcelain, a mix of frustration and self-reproach swirling inside. Let me help, Alex said, his voice gentle. He knelt beside her, his hand brushing against hers as they both reached for a particularly large fragment. A jolt, sharp and unexpected, shot up her arm. Their fingers lingered for a fraction of a second longer than necessary. He looked up, his gaze intense. Sorry, she whispered, pulling her hand away as if burned. The air crackled with an unspoken energy. No problem, he replied, his voice a little rough. He resumed gathering the broken pieces, his movements surprisingly careful. The sun glinted off his dark hair, highlighting the strong lines of his jaw. Sarah found herself staring mesmerized. He was so close, she could smell the subtle scent of his cologne, a clean, masculine fragrance that made her head spin. They worked in silence for a moment, the only sound the crunch of broken porcelain under their fingers. The vibrant chatter of the barbecue seemed to fade into the background, replaced by the drumming of her own heartbeat. The broken plates lay between them, a shattered symbol of her composure, and she knew, with a certainty that both terrified and thrilled her, that something had irrevocably shifted. The barrier she had so carefully constructed around herself felt fragile, ready to crumble at the slightest touch. Distant observation. Alex! Come on, let's play catch! Billy's voice, high and insistent, sliced through the gentle hum of adult conversation. He stood on the far edge of the lawn, baseball glove held aloft like a beacon. Alex, who had been leaning against the picnic table, listening with surprising attentiveness as Sarah explained her mother's prize-winning rhubarb pie recipe, straightened. He grinned, a flash of white teeth against his tanned face. Duty calls, he said with a playful wink that made Sarah's stomach flip. Go on, she managed, her voice a little breathier than she intended. She busied herself rearranging the paper plates, avoiding his gaze. You've been cooped up with us old folks for too long. He jogged towards Billy, his easy athleticism on full display. Sarah watched him go, a strange mix of relief and disappointment swirling within her. They started off gently, tossing the ball back and forth with lazy arcs. But soon, the throws grew harder, the catches more daring. Billy, emboldened by Alex's presence, shrieked with laughter as he narrowly avoided a rogue ball to the head. Alex ruffled his hair, his face alight with genuine amusement. Sarah leaned back against the picnic table, the rough wood digging into her skin. She watched them, the sun glinting off their hair, their youthful energy a stark contrast to the quiet exhaustion she felt creeping in. There was something captivating about Alex's focus, the way he coached Billy, his patience unwavering. He treated Billy not as a child, but as a fellow player, a comrade in arms. It was endearing. And unnervingly attractive. A wave of heat washed over her. What was she doing? She was old enough to be his mother. The thought should have been a cold shower, but instead, it just felt damp. She tried to focus on the familiar sights and sounds of the barbecue, Uncle Jerry arguing politics with her dad, her mother fussing over the potato salad, the sizzling burgers on the grill. But her eyes kept drifting back to Alex. He caught Billy's wild throw with a resounding smack of leather, the sound carrying across the lawn. He turned, catching Sarah's eye. He didn't smile, didn't acknowledge her in any way. But there was something in his gaze, an unspoken awareness, that sent another shiver down her spine. She quickly looked away, grabbing a handful of potato chips from the bowl. They tasted like cardboard. The age difference was absurd, a chasm that could never be bridged. He was barely more than a boy, on the cusp of adulthood. She was firmly planted in the middle of hers, a wife, a mother, a woman with responsibilities and wrinkles and a life that, until recently, had felt comfortably predictable. So why did her pulse quicken every time he looked at her? Why did his teasing feel different, charged with a current that she couldn't quite decipher? She chewed on a chip, the salt stinging her tongue. This was wrong. She knew it was wrong. But knowing it didn't make the feeling go away. It just made it ache a little more. The game continued, the rhythmic thud of the ball against leather a steady counterpoint to the turmoil within her. Distant observation. That was all it could ever be. Distant and detached. She had to remember that. For Billy's sake. For her own. A knowing glance. The last of the burgers were gone, leaving greasy ghosts on paper plates. Cicadas buzzed their evening chorus, a soundtrack to the contented sighs emanating from the porch swing where Uncle Jerry and Grandpa Joe were locked in a debate about the optimal grilling temperature for ribs. Sarah began gathering the scattered plastic cups, the sticky remnants of lemonade clinging to her fingers. "Let me help with that, Mrs. Miller," Alex said, appearing seemingly out of nowhere. He was already stacking chairs, his easy smile a welcome contrast to the general post-barbecue slump that had settled over the adults. "Thanks, Alex. You've been a real lifesaver today." She gestured towards the overflowing recycling bin. "If you could just toss those in." He grinned, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "My pleasure. Besides," he lowered his voice, tilting his head towards the oblivious porch swing duo, "someone has to maintain order around here." Sarah chuckled, surprised by the warmth that spread through her at his conspiratorial tone. He really was remarkably mature for his age. Order is a strong word. Chaos, maybe? He winked. Semantics. He finished clearing the cups, then paused, turning back to her. The setting sun painted his face in hues of orange and gold, highlighting the strength of his jawline. "I just wanted to say thanks for having me, Mrs. Miller. It was a great day." "Anytime, Alex. You're always welcome." She meant it. He was a good influence on her son, Mark, and a genuinely pleasant person to be around. He hesitated, the easy charm momentarily replaced by something else. Something that made her breath catch in her throat. "I also wanted to thank you for everything." His gaze locked with hers, a silent message passing between them, referencing something unspoken, something only they understood. The earlier, playful banter by the pools suddenly felt charged with a different kind of energy, a current that vibrated beneath the surface of their polite conversation. A flush crept up her neck. Was he referring to the sunscreen incident? The casual banter by the pool? Or was it something more, something she was only just now allowing herself to acknowledge? She managed a weak smile. "You're very welcome, Alex." He held her gaze for another beat, a knowing glint in his eyes, before breaking the connection. "See you around, Mrs. Miller." He turned and strode towards the driveway, where his parents' car was waiting. Sarah watched him go, the image of his lingering look burned into her memory. A shiver traced its way down her spine. She suddenly felt exposed, as if he could see right through her, knew her hidden thoughts, her secret desires. The feeling was unsettling, yet undeniably thrilling. She continued tidying, her movements mechanical. The laughter from the porch swing, the clinking of ice in Grandpa Joe's glass, it all seemed distant, muffled. The world had shifted on its axis, subtly, almost imperceptibly, but she knew, with a certainty that both excited and terrified her, that nothing would ever be quite the same. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows across the yard, mirroring the long shadows of doubt and anticipation that now stretched across her heart. Lingering questions. The last smear of potato salad vanished into the garbage can, and Sarah exhaled, a weary sound swallowed by the growing dusk. A vibrant tapestry of amethyst and flame painted the western sky, a striking contrast to the day's boisterous revelry. The remnants of the barbecue lay scattered, picnic benches slick with spilled soda, forlorn balloons tethered to the porch, and the faint, acrid ghost of charcoal mixing with the sharp bite of citronella. Even the crickets seemed subdued, their chirps muted in the gathering gloom. As she hosed off the patio, the frigid water numbed her fingers, each jet a futile attempt to expunge not just the mess, but the very echo of Alex's voice, the lingering warmth of his gaze on her. She attacked a particularly stubborn stain, as if physical effort could obliterate the memory of their exchange, the current of attraction that had hummed between them. Impossible. Later, cradled on the couch with cooling tea, the house hushed save for the refrigerator's low thrum, Sarah revisited the afternoon. Twice Alex had sought her out. And he had looked at her, differently. Not with the easy camaraderie of a friend's parent, but with something that bordered on admiration, perhaps even longing. The notion sent a skittering sensation through her. He had called her beautiful. A word relegated to the attic of her memory, long forgotten amidst the daily grind of errands, meals, and mountains of laundry. Her fingers drifted to her face, tracing the etched lines around her eyes, the subtle shadows beneath. Had he truly perceived something beyond the weary image she confronted each morning? The clandestine thrill was heady, yet laced with dread. She knew, with a conviction that resonated deep within, that whatever passed between them, unspoken as it remained, would be their secret alone. She wouldn't betray her son, wouldn't shatter the delicate equilibrium of her family. But what did it signify? A passing flicker of appeal, a harmless flirtation destined to dissipate like smoke? Or something more profound? A persistent phantom lurking at the edge of her vision, a constant reminder of paths not taken? She glanced towards the stairs, picturing Mark, her husband, asleep in their bed. Comfortable, reliable Mark. They had forged a life together, a good one. Yet lately, a quiet discontent had been brewing within her, an unacknowledged sense of incompleteness. Had Alex somehow sensed this void? Had he, wittingly or not, offered a glimpse of an alternative reality? She took a sip of her tea, its warmth offering little solace against the chill that had seeped into her bones. The questions tumbled through her mind, unanswered and unsettling. What did Alex desire? What did she yearn for? And how could she navigate the treacherous currents of desire without demolishing the very foundation of her life? The future stretched out, veiled and uncertain. All she knew, with stark clarity, was that the predictable landscape of her life had been irrevocably transformed. Alex had tossed a stone into the placid waters of her existence, and the ripples were only now beginning their inexorable spread.